Hi guys. So it's like 1:30 in the morning. The struggle of my PTSD. Also too, I'm still recovering from my ribs, so trying to lay on my sides. Right now I don't know why I'm still having some pain when I lay in certain ways and stuff like that. So one of the delays to me coming back to YouTube was I fractured my ribs and I was very irritable, didn't want to talk to anybody. Part of PTSD too. Our events from everything that we go through in the past 15 years alone that me and Hugo have been together, living together, our relationship since spinal muscular atrophy type 1, even before. I was a nursing aide in long-term care before, and I was diagnosed. I was going to go to school May 26th, I believe it was. I was set up for Northern Lakes College to go and do my LPN. I was a hard worker, very devoted, more about patient's care than I was about the paycheck, I guess. I was 4 months pregnant with Anna. We transitioned from a hospital to a private facility. It was a big transition to do. Eventually in time, I realized that the training was insane. People are standing in the hallways talking. People aren't on the lifts properly. Stand-up lifts, sitting lifts, they were like sagging, falling, when people are talking and these people are hanging off these lifts or, during training and things like this. And I started looking around and I started realizing all the patients we had at the hospital lost drastic amounts of weight. And I started paying attention. All the patients are very skinny. They're losing weight. They're not eating properly. Then I realized it was just chaos when the whole training came and everything. And then workers' pays and policies and the way we were being treated as workers was even degrading. To watch them bring foreign workers in and really manipulate them so that there would be no union voted in or anything like that happen. And that what we were told is that, at least they will do what they're told. So I ended up doing research and study, mass amounts of it, on policies, how workers are supposed to be treated, how the care is for people, supposed to be done. Senior care, really important. I saw a lot of people go downhill over a variety of different reasons. Internal bleeding, very hard to catch. I've seen, a variety of patients die from internal bleeding. And one of them, when they were literally had a fall, a massive bruising, complaining of abdomen pain, you report it and say that. And meanwhile, people are bringing this patient beer and alcohol and letting her have mouthwash. And I was like, I'm sure she has internal bleeding. And no, nobody listens. 2 months later dies of internal bleeding. But let's give her mouthwash. Let's bring her beer, all those things. She's dying. She's at the end. Why not? And I get it. I get that. But at the same time, the medical negligence was there. I watched a patient and he had dark coffee grind stools bleeding out of, and I report it. And no, but he's deemed aggressive and everything like that. And they sedated him. He died from internal bleeding. I think I've watched a few patients die from internal bleeding. I've watched a man severely dehydrated being yelled at and forced to get up out of his chair, forced to go to lunch, and medical signs are there. He's not doing good. Something's wrong. He's shaking. He's having a hard time standing up. No, let's yell at him. Let's force him up and get him to the kitchen table. That's more important. I think when I work, it's not that I go to a long-term care facility and I put on my uniform and I go, look, guys, I'm here because look at me in my scrubs. Look how great I look. Don't I look hot as a nurse? I'm book smart. That's the common one. For nurses, oh, you mean I'm going to have to do this during my training? No, all I'm going to do is blood pressures and check pulses all day. That's what I plan to do. What do you mean I have to do contact to contact with that patient? Yeah, I've had lots of those trainings too. And then they pass them. They ask you, what do you think? And I said, I really honestly don't think this person should pass because she doesn't have the heart in it, the compassion, and she doesn't care about her patients. But they passed her. That she wouldn't do any hands-on work. She Just wants to do blood pressures for the rest of her life. That's it. That's all she's going to do as a nurse. Honestly, had no potential. But they passed her. Why? Yeah, we'll give her opportunity. But, the one screaming out of the room that, the first patient they take him to was an ostomy bag, patient. And she came out of the room screaming. Great preparation, guys. Anyway. So those people, the sensitivities. So anyways, I was 4 months pregnant and I noticed all these things going on and got this policy and I slammed it down on my supervisor's desk and I said, look, we're not doing the right standards and people's care is going downhill really fast. We're burning out, improper training. Like, it's a real mess in this private facility. So we got into an argument, me and the supervisor, and so then I said, you know what, I'm not going to work in a facility like this. I'm not. You've got, you're overstaffed today. No big deal. I'm 4 months pregnant. I'm walking out. Grabbed my stuff. My supervisor stood in the exit entrance of the doorway. Sorry, my hair's doing all these funky things. As I cut it, it's got its mind of its own. So anyways, I was telling her, like, you're blocking me. You're not allowed to block me or prevent me from leaving. And you're blocking me from leaving. And she's like going on and, saying how I have to stay and all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I said, there are witnesses right over there. There was a construction crew outside working on something. And I said, they're watching everything. And finally she looked back and she let me go. I walked out of my job. I was 4 months pregnant. And I was a single mom. Hugo, I didn't ask him for anything. We were just figuring our relationship out. We really hit it off. His ex was drinking and partying lots, and he really didn't want that lifestyle. Kept trying to give her a little bit of an opportunity. Well, maybe I can try to make it work for my kids and stuff. And I mean, at that point, it was hard. And it was a hard decision for him to make, to say that I'm going to come across Canada and I'm going to be in Alberta for the rest of my life with you. And we're going to make this happen, and we're going to have all 3 kids fly back and forth. And can you imagine the cost? And take care of them and all that stuff. And, and be there and, and have this great life with all our children and stuff. And so when I walked out of my work, I literally was on my own. I had my own house, paid my own mortgage, my own bills. I owned 2 vehicles just before Hugo and I started dating. I literally sold one vehicle. They were both paid off. Both of them cleared, paid off, truck and car. Nice Dodge Ram pickup and a neon sports car. So, sunroof, nice little engine. Actually, a really nice, really little engine in it. But I paid those off and I worked for that myself. I took my $200 little car, turned it around into I went to the car dealership and said, look, what is my 89 Suzuki Swift worth? And they didn't want to tell me. And I said, you got a little black book, pull it out. I want to see what the trading value is. Turned out my $200 89 Suzuki Swift was worth $1,500. There was my down payment for my new neon with the sunroof. So I did. And I was a single mom. I had to start on my own. The relationship and I, before, we didn't work out because we were both young. When you grow up in a certain value of people and they have a particular focus, that becomes more than what you see more in life yourself. Like, I'm 2 different people, 2 different places. Bad situation. And for myself, I went through a lot as we split up. We both kind of did, but me not being from the town, I went through a lot of harassment at my jobs, 2 of my jobs in public. Anyway, even taking my son out for lunch, and he tripped on a carpet one day, and this friend of my ex's was like, oh, I'm going to tell everybody you pushed him. Nice. I was just taking my son for lunch. And it was constant like that, non-stop, daily. At my work, both my jobs, his mom showing up with court orders when we already had court times in place and trying to aggravate me in my workforce. And, it was insane. And I held myself and I didn't ask for more than what I was receiving. I received like $500 altogether, and it was like $275 went to um, daycare, and then the rest was supposed to be my child support, $300 in our day and age, when most women were getting like $1,700 for their kids, for one child. And I was like, okay, whatever. And I said I didn't want to be that mom. I just wanted him to be there. And if I need anything, hopefully he'll be responsible enough to say, yeah, I'll get your kid. Not your kid, but our kid. We'll make sure that I can do the braces. You're always there feeding him, clothing him, taking him to his appointments, to his hockey games, to his karate, to, all the appointments. You're there, every school meeting, all that stuff. At least I could do is give our son braces. It's a fight. And it becomes ugly in between all situations. But anyways, let's go back to this long-term care thing. And I have this real bad issue with my PTSD memory relapses, where I do jump from one subject to the next subject because my brain is so full from subjects. And I don't lose sight of my subjects. I know that they're there. I just keep jumping to the topic because something else will trigger my brain because of the amounts of things that go on in our life. My goal is not to target our healthcare system in a bad way. It's a serious situation. So when I started seeing the senior care, all that stuff, I had to drive. I finally got 2 other jobs. I got one, my mom got me at a cozy lounge in Peace River. And it's 45 minutes to drive to Peace River, and it's going through a valley. So there's lots of deer. You have to watch them. You have to be alert when you're driving through Peace River, like seriously alert when you're going through the valleys, especially at night and the days. And there was a time I was going to work and I saw all this deer skin. I was like, holy, that was a pretty good hit. And you have that weird sunken in feeling when you see something like that sometimes, and you feel like it's somebody you knew or something, right? And then I show up to work and they're my mom's car. Right away I see the blood, I see the hair, and I see her car damaged, and I knew it was my mom that hit that deer. So I would go from there, and then I worked at the Nova Inn in Peace River, and I did night auditing. So I'd get off that job, and then I would go to the other job, and then I would drive another 45 minutes home, exhausted and tired, worn out. Not to mention, when I was first pregnant with Anna, we found out because I was so sick. I was so sick I thought I was dying. I seriously was ice cold. I went out with some of the girls from work that night, some of the nursing staff and us. We went out, had a couple beers, and then I was like, I have a headache. And when I came home, and I think I dropped a tire rim fell on my leg because I went through my garage and I forgot I had the tire rim hovering on the door handle, and when I lifted the garage door, the tire rim fell right into my leg. Thankfully not my head. I mean it could have been my head. It was very close, and those are extremely heavy. So I took Tylenol and I had a headache, and then I started feeling super sick, and I called Hugo, and it was like 3 a.m, and he barely spoke French at the time, and I'm like, Hugo, I don't feel well. I think I'm dying. Something's wrong. And he's like, you know what, maybe somebody put something in your drink and just try to sleep it off and see how you feel in the morning. And so then my best friend came and showed up. My son come running from my parents' house, and mom, and I couldn't even get off the couch. I was vomiting heavily. I was ice cold. I couldn't stop vomiting and shaking. And my best friend just happened to show up for something and see if she could borrow something. And she just lived down the street from me, so she just come run over, and she's like, oh my God, and got my son rushed over to my parents' house, ran really quickly, helped me up, and tried to get me into the truck. And I asked her to drive me to Peace River because I worked at the McLennan Hospital before and stuff like that, right? I was pregnant when I was working at the hospital. Anyways, obviously. So then that whole transitions of things, I was so sick. They admitted me for 4 days. They put me on some medication, which I had to stay on for about 7 months because every time, like even on the medication, I was vomiting. I was just sick. I had never been sick with my son, but I was a little bit. I didn't even know I was pregnant for the first 2 months of my pregnancy with my son. I had no idea, and I was still taking my birth control, and I was like, oh my God, the damage I could have done to him, and all this stuff. And antibiotics, by the way. Make sure when you take birth control, you use something extra with antibiotics if you're ever on an antibiotic. And I didn't know that. I was young. And then that's when I found out my mom was telling me that's how I was born, actually. She was on antibiotics, same situation. And I was like, well, it would have been great if you would have shared that story with me, you know, because then I would have had more knowledge. And I didn't. And the doctor told me, you know, you might as well have eaten a spoonful of sugar. So, good old Mary Poppins. But anyways, I walked out of my job. I think it was like 2 months, I think it took. And then I get this phone call one day. I'm sitting there, tired, exhausted from all the driving. And it's my supervisor from the private facility. And she's asking me to come back to work. She says, Lisa, you were right about everything you said. Everything you said. And we're going to make changes. And she says, with everything, with the seniors, with your guys' pays, with your hours, the way we're working you, all this stuff. Okay, so we did that. I get back in eventually. I don't know where it all started, but eventually union started being brought in, and we walked the dock and called in union, and eventually we got in union, and then now that's gone. It got voted out somewhere, and then Alberta Health Services took over the facility now to this day. Is it perfect? By far no. Brand spanking new building that was built basically on a pond that wasn't dug deep enough, and the person that was tightening the pipes was an 81-year-old. Can you imagine the chaos that building had? Not to mention it's built by a swamp, so every time you in the spring you're walking, you have to watch out for the little frogs in the hallways. They were everywhere. Tiny, I mean tiny little frogs. And if you are running down the hallway and you don't see one and you step on one, it was just gross. Anyway, my old phone, I used to have all the pictures of, you know, like metal falling off the roof. We've had pipes burst in the walls over people's heads. You name it. We've had the heat pipe burst and somebody and this lady, she was like, my feet are burning. And, you know, she's walking around barefoot and everybody's trying to get her back to bed and telling her she's insane and all this stuff. And I'm like looking at her and I finally look at her feet and I realized her feet were red. And everybody's trying to, oh, you know, because she's Alzheimer's, right? Why should we believe her? She's like, no, they're so hot and they're burning. And finally I look at her feet and I see that the edges of her bottom of her feet are really red. And I got curious and I bent down and I touched the floor with my hand and the floor was extremely hot. It was so hot. So I let them know. I was like, holy shit, you know, this floor is hot. So we had to call. It took forever. Maintenance is like, oh, come, you know, it was a disaster to try to get maintenance to come and help with that. And it was chaotic, but you know, those are some of the small examples. And it's not even, you know, I come into work one day. This is my biggest tiff of things. Come into work one day and I mean, one of the patients, I just happened to be walking by and she's shivering. And after supper or something, coming from my evening shift and the window's open and she's in this very thin nightgown and she's shivering and shaking and I go and I check on her. I'm not even on shift yet. And she's soaked literally all the way up her back, all the way all over. Calling in another staff and freaking out because her face is full of food, wasn't even washed. She just was left in a chair in front of a TV and dropped like that. This patient happened to be a grandmother that was highly respected by somebody else I worked with in a, you know, there was a home, mentally challenged home that I worked with, and it was their grandmother, and that was his highlight every Sunday was to go see his grandmother. He dressed up and I'm going to see my grandmother today, Lisa, and he would smile, and he was so happy to go see his grandmother every Sunday. Devoted, always talked about how much he loved her, how much of a big part of his life she was. And this was his grandmother, sitting in the chair, shivering, shaking, soaked and saturated in urine in her chair in front of a TV with the window open. Eventually, she did get pneumonia shortly after that. And she made it through. She was okay. But do you see what I'm saying? And when I went and I did a complaint, I went outside because the coworker that was supposed to watch her, I went out and I was yelling at the coworker. I was so mad. I should have went and wrote it up, but my temper got Scottish, Irish, Ukrainian, and Polish in me, guys. Plus, I'm Canadian. I'm an Albertan. We don't pipe down, I tell you. We don't. So, when we got something to say, majority of times we will. But There's so many ironic stories about this whole situation. Anyways, I was really upset. I got written up by the coworker and the resident for, yelling at my coworker about the negligence of what she just did, and that this was a person's grandmother, and this was a person, someone who built our futures ahead of us. And so, anyways, I got my job back. I got actually a pay increase. Actually, I had a really good pay, really good benefits, all that stuff, and continued on. Eventually, I got pneumonia when I was pregnant with Anna, and I still kept trying to work, but I collapsed at work, and then had to go in, obviously, because obviously I had to figure out what was going on. I literally knocked over. I don't know what exactly happened. An LPN came in, and I don't remember if I was climbing off the floor or if she was helping me off the floor. I don't remember exactly what happened. I don't know, I passed out, I don't know. And the whole table, our staff table from the staff room was knocked over onto the floor, and all these chairs on the floor, and she's helping me up. And then finally I went to the doctor's next day, and I had pneumonia, and I was like begging him, can you just give me 2 more weeks because I need to make my mat leave. I have no other income. And he said, okay, but if I get worse, he's admitting me. So I was like, okay. And then my ex was it was Christmas Eve, and my ex was supposed to bring my son back. He lived in Grand Prairie at the time, and him and his wife promised, oh, we'll bring him back, and and everything. And I'm like, okay, because I don't have much gas, and I got to work tonight. I got night shift, and I'm really sick. Well, I get a last minute phone call. Nope, I have to meet them in Rycroft, or I'm not getting my son back. And he said he would give me $20 for gas. I honestly was waiting for my next paycheck. And right away, as soon as I got out of the truck, his wife starts coming out and starts attacking me verbally, aggressively, and my dad. They didn't know my dad was in the truck, and my dad stuck his head out and said, she's pregnant, for Christ's sakes. My dad's, okay, I apologize, but my dad was like, for Christ's sakes. And he's like, Jesus Christ almighty. That was my dad. So I apologize if anybody finds it offensive, but he was a Navy man, and that's what he did. His thing was Jesus Christ almighty. And usually it would be my mom, Irene. But anyway. So he was like, Jesus Christ almighty, guys. Jay's pregnant already. Leave her alone. And they both, and his wife ran back into the car, and he comes forward. And no, I didn't get help for the gas. And I was really struck for gas for my, for work, actually. I was just on my last bit there. And that unexpected drive to Rycroft from basically Donley is, it's a long drive. And so it was things like that. There was a time, I gotta say, I asked that my son not go in the vehicle because the rotors were shot in the vehicle. And I'm like, well, you can't drive from here to Grand Prairie with your rotor shot with our son in the vehicle. Like, that's not good. Like, they're shot. You shouldn't even be driving your vehicle to Grand Prairie at all. And I said, if you're going to take, that risk, that's fine. But I will meet you in Grand Prairie because I'm going for my birthday anyway. Well, the rumor went around that I was denying access of my son on and on and on. And then when I asked my ex in the parking lot to have his family and friends please leave me alone at work, his sister got out of the car and started on me. And, I said, I need them to leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. His sister got out of the car and started on me and started threatening that she's going to shove her fist down my throat and how I'm this horrible mom and this horrible person. And I sat there while she was threatening me, and her daughter highlighted me and adored me and just loved me. The only thing that this woman didn't realize and think about was that her daughter was left in the parking lot, in a hot parking lot, in a hot car, bawling her face off while watching her mother threaten to shove her fist down my throat. Because I asked for respect, to be left alone so I can move on with my life. And before that, I asked that, you just didn't drive with my son in the car with your rotor shot. I didn't see any wrong in that, but apparently I denied access after that, and it was just going on. And this is what I lived like my whole life, or not my whole life, but what I was going through, and just trying to get through the motherly duties of what you do as a mom. Work hard. I don't know many single moms who can say that they were paying their mortgage, They owned 2 vehicles paid off clear, that they put siding on their house, they put windows, they put a roof on their home, they did their floors, painted their walls, that they did all that, fixed their furnace. I did all that. Mowed my own lawn too, by the way. You know, you think about it, when you own your house, I had a large property. Did all my own yard work on top of that. And my son was always like, Mom, I never see you because you work so much. So I did eventually have to let go of a job because I was like, wait a minute, we're financially okay. You're right. And eventually I got pregnant with Anna. When I first walked into the stollery, so Hugo and I met, and I knew this was coming, sorry. And I mean, I get stressed, I'm burpy, I get fidgety. The PTSD in me does not let me sit down. The anxiety does not let me I'm sitting, but I mean, my mind is always all over the place. So 15 years ago, Anna was admitted in the stollery May 22nd, 2008. Like I've said, there's a lot of hardships in the stollery from between us and the stollery. And then like we've been told, like when, like we were told last time, not so long ago, that a lot of the doctors in the stollery find us very intimidating. When we come in, we are just bulldozers. That's it. Because I don't have room for medical negligence anymore. I don't have room for stupidity anymore. I don't have room for people to keep telling me how I'm wrong. And that, well, no, they don't tell me I'm wrong. How do I put this? A lot of the professions, and I mean professions, like top-notch professions. And we've had specialists come in our home. We have people that come and do home visits, and that normally never happened for kids. But we do have that now, starting. We've had them tell us the reason why nobody wants to stand up for what has been going on in our healthcare system is because their license and their jobs are threatened. I walked out of my job when I was 4 months pregnant with my daughter, Emma, who has been a part of the healthcare system for 15 years. I could have had a choice to hold her in my arms and let her go and that be it and go on with my life and try to fix my life from there. I could also save lives. Anna could save lives. Anna could be Stephen Hawkins. I mean, the eye gaze, everybody was like, oh my gosh, he's like the smartest man in the world or whatever. And, the eye gaze did wonders for an amazing man that brought great opportunities to our world. But we don't look at that. We'll look at another person with a disability and go, oh. And then we'll turn around and talk about how great Stephen Hawkins is. Christopher Reeves, phenomenal actor, highlighted, great life. I rode a horse, and in a split second, he was paralyzed for the rest of his life from neck down. And he still had to make a go of his life. He still did. Pushed for research and everything else and made changes. Didn't give up on who he was. He's paralyzed didn't mean he was an idiot. He had a lot of potential to offer our world. So why is my daughter any less value? Why should anybody with a disability be any less value? We've learned so much from people's disabilities. We've learned so much from a medical world. Oh, medical science. Let me talk about this. My cancer. I had to have these injections. $2,000 a piece. Let me talk about this for a minute. If you actually did your research into the medications and drugs of, that would save lives, $2,000 probably costs $10 to $20 to make. Research, yes, is expensive. I mean, great. They need to pay off their research for sure and continue research. So yes, the prices will get a little bit higher and stuff, but $2,000 for life-saving medications. I had to have 2 of those injections, so that was $4,000. I was told that if I didn't have insurance or if my insurance didn't cover it, because most insurance won't, but thankfully my insurance covered it twice at that time. if I didn't have coverage, there was enough funds in the cancer foundations to ensure my treatments, which is great. Is there enough funds in my daughter's research foundation? Genetics. You want to know why? Because the numbers are low. So when you donate to the Children's Stollery Hospital, they decide that it goes mostly to cancer research and heart foundation. Genetics, though. Let's think about this for a minute. Is genetics not a part of a genetic heart failure? Is genetics not part of, I don't know, science? Let's not go there, though. Why? I knew when I learned about spinal muscular atrophy and I started connecting dots, how are we not advanced enough to save these lives? What do you mean research doesn't have a cure or a treatment? We have the technology. So I was told to let my daughter die because the numbers with SMA are low and there's no cure. Okay. So if my daughter lives, does that make a number increase? More awareness then? So every person that's coming through the door, you're telling them to just let their babies die then? Today, spinal muscular atrophy has a treatment. My daughter goes in every 4 months for spinal injection treatments. There is a medication. One-time medication that can just take, boop, not gone. I mean, obviously my daughter's progressed in 15 years. So the SMA has taken its toll on her body, but it stops the rest of the progressions and gives back a little bit to her and gives her ambitions and goals. Oh wait, I'm starting to wiggle my finger now. I can do this, Mom. I have an independent. That's a big thing for her. Every new little movement. And it gives her something to work towards. I sat with her in the hospital for 10 years. The first year being she was literally in hospital from May 22nd. And I don't even remember her release date. It was almost 2 years later, her release date. And we got her home. And the first night I got her home, and the nurse waited till Hugo goes to bed, pulls me aside and leans me up against the wall and says, "You know what? You're wrong for doing this." Wrong for what? You know, you should just let your daughter go. You're crazy. You need to be admitted. Started attacking my mental health mind. Little did she know that I knew, because I'm with Hugo. Hugo has sonic ears. Comes out, because at this point I'm yelling at her. And she turns around and she goes, "Oh, do you see what your wife is saying to me? Do you see her yelling at me?" And he said, "Yeah, I also heard what you said to my wife before. You have 10 minutes, not even, to collect everything that you have in this home at this moment and get the fuck out before I throw you out." Didn't hear that, huh, nurse? Again. A lot of things changed in home care since that day. Was anything justified? No. I had a psychiatrist when I was admitted for my suicide July 1st this year of Canada Day, 2022. I was admitted, went in voluntarily because I know I'm at a point where I'm like, it's a lot to intake, but it's a lot of the impacts from people. Impact, trauma, impact, trauma, impact, trauma. Nobody being responsible for their action. So I end up with a lot of pain inside that I don't know what to do with. My psychiatrist, I went in for suicidal help. My psychiatrist didn't read my file for 2 days, in the first 2 days of my admission. Nobody really did. They just took a brief on me and that was it, and labeled me with whatever they wanted. Didn't care about my honest mental health well-being. Not listening to the patient when they're like, look, I'm got to be careful what I take medically. They didn't even look at my neurologist. You know, they took my phone away because my mom's online scammers keep haunting me. And so one of them popped up and was saying, oh, I love you, I'm going to do this. And, you know, that's how they are. And you're just like, yeah, okay. And I was like, and sometimes I drag them and stuff like that. And Hugo freaked out. And, oh, she's just like her mom. And look at this. And they took my phone away. But I literally like toy with them. I'm like, you know, and then eventually I'm like, how's Nigeria? And I mean, every text you can see, it's just like that. And then I ask them why they do what they do and why they're scamming us and why they can't just leave me alone and why can't they get a real job. And police won't do anything because the police are like, no, you got to go to the RCMP about it because this is seniors abuse. It is seniors abuse. And I was told this, that these online romance scams are senior abuse and nobody will do anything about it. I was told by the police that I have to go to the RCMP. The RCMP say you got to go to the police. The police say you got to go back to the RCMP. I go back to the RCMP. They say no, you got to go to the police. It's a police problem. And then all of a sudden the RCMP is like, no, it's international. You got to go to the international. The international say you got to talk to the RCMP first, and you got to file a report through the RCMP, and then we can go through the international. But then the RCMP are saying no, you got to go back to the police. Nobody wants to deal with it because it's too much paperwork. Could you imagine the credential of actually solving and taking on this big, huge crime that is tormenting our senior parents or people who are lost and lonely and empty inside, and they just take innocent, heartful people and destroy them? A lot of people commit suicide over this. But why help it? Why stop it? We'll just keep putting out the play cards and Bitcoin and everything that supports crime. How about build a garden for your neighbor? Give them a fruit. See where that goes. Support your community. Ever take a shirt off your back because a homeless person was freezing? Make a bowl of chili or soup and give it to them while they're across the street from you. Ever take that time? Talked to a homeless man the other day. And he's like, you know, I had my wallet, everything. I could just come from BC. I was sleeping on the bus and my wallet's stolen. He was sleeping on the bus. I think he said his wallet got stolen on the bus. Or he had his ID. And I think I kind of was listening to him. And I don't know, he was sleeping on the bus and he come from BC and, you know, trying to find his way. And then he's talking about how he was sleeping on the bus and he got lost and he doesn't know where he is because he doesn't know the city. And he was, you can see he was scared. He didn't know what to do. Young. I mean, if I could have had enough trust, I would have been like, sure, dude, you can come sleep in my shack for all I care. I don't care. You know, I've got a room. You can come sleep there. But I don't know. I didn't know him. I don't know if I can trust him, you know, and that's the big thing about things like that. But he seriously was lost. I gave him my last $2, and the only thing that he could talk about that he was happy that he ever saved was his grandfather's Purple Heart. He's like, at least I got that. The city wrecked everything else, took down his tent, trashed his stuff. And I think he said that's where his ID was. And now that he doesn't have ID, he doesn't have any way to prove himself or a physical address. And now he can't get work because he needs the ID and the physical address. How are we helping anybody then? Truly, if you have all these people on the street and their biggest struggle, because every time I talk to a homeless person, the biggest struggle is their ID and a physical address. Why can't we use the Bissell Center then? Why can the Bissell Center not be their physical address so that they can get back on their feet? And why is there not a lineup or a place for people to work on specifically just IDs to get people off the street? Makes sense to me. Or find a way to get them a temporary ID so that they can get to work and get off the streets and get an opportunity. I know a lot of them are drug addicted and things like that. But when you look at the history of wars, where did addiction start? Where were they promoted? World War II. They didn't know what to do with the men's dress because of the war. So they provided alcohol, cigarettes, and women such as school teachers, women that lost their spouses and had no income and no means of making income, so they were put in whorehouses for men's pleasure of stress. Want to know where the degrading parts of women come from? Our governments created this mess of addictions and never cleaned it up properly because it's a money market. Our medical fields has been made to be a medical market over people's lives. So you take my life, where my son died from a viral pneumonia, but before that, my daughter has special needs, okay? Fragile, most complex, one of the most complex in Edmonton that was considered before, is what they told us. Okay, so my son was sick and I saw the symptoms. If I was able to see those symptoms of his cough, his cold, everything that I wrote down, and understand that he was sick, why did nobody else understand that then? In a medical profession, and I'm a hypochondriac. Coming from a medical mom, when I had a brain bleed, I went in August 6th, I think it was 2019 or 2020, just around the beginning of COVID there. And August 6th, I went in with massive head pain, massive pain. And my brain bleed started right about here, right off to the side. Just so my temple is right here, and my brain bleed was right there. And I still feel pains from it to this day, by the way, right here, I can tell you, because I get pain from there constantly. August 6th, I go in, they do my evaluation, and it's a simple migraine. Send me back home. August 10th, 4 days later, I go back into the hospital, met the Grey Nuns in Edmonton, and of course I'm crying and I'm screaming, I'm in pain. It goes from 0 to 60, right through your whole head and cranium. Tremendous amount of pain, like somebody is taking a metal crusher, put your head on cement, and is literally crushing your head. Oh God, it was excruciating pain. I still get over the trauma. It's very traumatic for me, for what I went through. I mean, it was pain. And I had this nurse tell me to stop crying because it's just a simple migraine. Stop overreacting. You're being so ridiculous. Not to mention that I was sitting in the waiting room for 2 hours prior. My mom sitting there kept checking and looking, and finally she stood up and she's like, my daughter is having a brain bleed. And I think there was a surgeon or somebody who happened to be walking by coming from surgery or something, just stopped and kind of looked at me a little bit and then turned around and got people right away and got me in, and I got in. So this nurse was evaluating me when I got in, and then I could hear her and this other nurse outside in the hallway going on about how I'm a hypochondriac and I'm just overreacting over a simple freaking migraine and I'm just stupid. And so they take me for my CT scan, and at this point I'm like, I'm just crazy and it's just a migraine and I'm an idiot. And I come back and I come around the corner and there's paramedics waiting by my bed and a stretcher, and they're like, oh, we're transferring you to the U of A hospital now, and you've had a brain bleed, you're gonna have to go for surgery. Oof. Some migraine, I tell you. That was some migraine. Yeah, just a simple migraine. So I go to the U of A. I'm still not hooked up to any IV. Never drank any water that day. It was 83 degrees in the house because our air conditioner broke down because the company wouldn't come fix the air conditioner, and then tried to take us to court because we weren't making any more payments because we wanted our air conditioner fixed because my daughter's on life support. I suffer through thyroid disease and I'm very sensitive to heat. I'm very sensitive to heat. I mean, very sensitive. Like the sun comes out and I'm instantly sweating. So I can detect a fracture by touching someone's leg or arm because I can feel the heat. Like, I'm not sensitive to heat. So anyways, yeah, it was 83 degrees in the house. I had no water. I didn't drink anything all day. I literally was running and getting this for my son and getting that for my youngest daughter and going getting the medical supplies for my oldest daughter. And I didn't stop, and it was like 2:30 in the afternoon when I finally got home, and I wasn't feeling very good. I remember feeling very hot, and then like a big hot flash come over me, big sweat come over me, and then boom, everything. And I was like trying to do laundry, fold laundry, and texting and chatting and trying to keep my spirits, okay, this is okay, it's just a migraine and I'll be fine. And boom, it started hitting me. When I was in, before a long time, when Anna was admitted in Stollery, I always sat by her bedside and I kept telling Hugo, I swear, like they kept calling him, and oh, Lisa's crazy and Lisa's doing this and Lisa's doing that. And I said, look, they're egging me on, honest to God, Hugo. I said, when you leave, they act, oh, bye, Hugo. And they're all nice and sweet. And the moment you leave, they start in on me. And then they call you. So I sat there and I felt so defeated because they're going, oh, Hugo, and this one, her name is Lindsay, and she had this big, beautiful, long hair, and looking at her wedding magazines, and this is the nurses taking care of my daughter. And that was the worst one out of all of them that just dig her teeth right into me. Hugo would leave, she'd wait a few minutes, lift her head, and I knew it was going to start. What I didn't know, here she goes, she starts. Hugo left for work. I'm sitting on the cot bed beside Anna, and she's going. And just hitting me, and I'm asking her to leave me alone. Nope, kept going. And I happened to look up, lift my head, and I looked up, and there's Hugo holding a cup of coffee, standing in the doorway, in the doorframe, listening to the whole situation. He couldn't believe it. He thought I was full of crap. And he said something, and she nearly shook. And he said, you were never going to treat my wife like that again. From there on, he started hitting and bulldozing people like crazy. His temper started increasing, and he became a drill sergeant. My son, when he passed away, we went to this memorial that the doctor has every 2 years at his house, which is really nice to do for everybody. I get it. But I watched Hugo's face turn. He's looking around and saw all these parents with these children who had passed away, and they're wanting to do this and do that. And then all of a sudden, boom, I just saw this anger go in his face. I was watching it and I was like, are you okay? And ever since then, and ever since that day, he's never been the same. He's been seriously angry. And so what was described to me when I went through therapy with Dawson, through his behavioral psychiatrist, is Hugo realizing the amount of my childhood abuse and traumas, and actually seeing it and come through, and seeing my mom's actions of her gambling, everything I've struggled with, and the reality come to light was a big shock for him in his system. So then he has to go in protective mode. And then this happening, all these events happening at the Stollery Hospital. And then when my son passed away, Caleb, he went into drill sergeant mode, and that's it. He's never come back out again. He was diagnosed with untreated ADHD and PTSD, complex PTSD, this past year. And as it's explained to me, the doctor said he's in the angry stages of both of these newly diagnosed stages. I've been in the angry stages of PTSD, and it's a very dark place for a person to be. Very difficult to get out, very hard for people to understand your anger, your frustration. I hated my mom. God, I hated her for everything that we went through. And it was hard to find forgiveness, but then I kept going, there's got to be something that's triggering her all the time. And, it's got to be and I noticed it was when my grandfather died. And finally she started talking about it. And yeah, it destroyed her inside to see me have this person that I loved so much. She said, you know, like, I loved my grandfather, like, and she was very close to her grandmother because her mom was sick all the time. So she spent a lot of time with her grandmother, and she loved her grandmother like I loved my grandfather. And she loved her grandfather like so, or sorry, loved her father so much, and it destroyed her. It just really left her in a state of shock when he died, especially after everything that a Ukrainian family would go through in Europe already, after they've all been through. He died from from the time that he went to World War II. His dad died on the platform, on the train platform, waiting to go for Second World War. His Second World War. So he ended up having a heart attack on the platform, and he ended up dying on the platform. And then from that day, you know, from the day that the World War II started, my grandfather had 27 silent heart attacks since, and the 27th one, obviously. He was at his in-laws in Calgary. He went to go visit everybody because he was going to head back to Europe and get some construction going and things like that, and start building a business for the families and stuff. And he went to Calgary, and he was telling us for a while that he wasn't feeling good. And my mom kept taking him into the doctors, and so then he went upstairs saying that, you know, he felt tired and he needed to go rest, and his arm was kind of weird, and, you know, all the signs, obviously. But he went upstairs and he peacefully went to sleep. And, you know, I'd always used to go to the couch where he was, where he passed away on, and sit there all the time because that's the only place I felt like I could be close to him and talk to him. And it really changed our family, the grief. I watched a guy I know. He found his stepbrother, had shot himself and blown everything. And I remember the look on his face when I saw him coming up the sidewalk, and he was in absolute distress and shock. And nobody gave him that support he needed afterwards. And I watched him drastically go downhill from that and into heavy drugs and become this person, but nobody went into the depths of his traumas and said he was not, you know, he had to deal with what he went through and saw, and nobody can find out. You know, they just keep going and, oh, he's a drug addict, he's this and he's that. But I remember that day, and I think back on it, and I'm like, he didn't have that proper support. That was a horrible thing for him to go through. Death, trauma, again. My son, trauma, when my boyfriend passed away in a house fire. It was a shock for myself because I was like, I should have been able to do something. I was there. Why didn't I stay? Like, all these things go through my head. I should have been the one taking care of him. I should have pulled him up. I was there, like, you know, and all this guilt. You know, I remember even saying, let's get a bowl of water, because he had been drinking that day. Let's get a bowl of water to sober him up, or, you know, and I'm like, it's just like, we got to get a bowl of water. And it was so hard to go through because my parents were going through a separation. And it was really tough. Their addictions were hard on me at the same time. They're fighting. My sister come out and gave me a hug when I was at the Boys and Girls Club from her car and said she had to go. And you just feel lost. So I just felt like everything was my fault. My parents, the abuse going on in the home, the yelling, the screaming, the addictions, to all of a sudden having to deal with that loss again. Tried to pick myself back up in life, go through school, keep my goals going. Lost a lot of goals, stopped playing ball, dropped out of cadets, was the most outstanding cadet in my corps. I gave up a lot of things that I was actually aiming towards, goals, and started making new ones in my life and new paths. And then one day my mom started calling threw my dog outside. And again, my parents were separated at this point, and it was high school, middle of high school. And yeah, I'm 18 at this point, and in my second semester, throws my dog out, yelling at me and telling me, all these horrible things. And, you just get tired. And so my friend at the time took me in and took me to her grandmother's, and the school counselor helped me get a bus ticket so that I could go all the way up north where my sister was living, where my dad was staying. And we were all crammed into this little trailer, and I had to sleep on this really old couch that was really itchy, and the springs, you could feel every spring in your bone, right into your rib cage and your back and your spine and your hips. And my dad would get up early in the morning and let me go sleep on the cot that he was sleeping on. And and it was just like that. I'd go to school, go to work, take care of my niece, go to school, go to work, take care of my niece. And it was tough. The trailer was leaking, and it was raining, and it was cold, and it was just a really crappy trailer for, there was 5 of us in there, 4 adults and 1 child. So then went from there, got into a different trailer, a little bit better. My dad eventually went back to my mom, and, and then I moved out and tried to make it on my own, and it was really hard. You have the world against you. I hit a party stage, so I was degraded for that constantly. I hit a party stage because all of a sudden you just let go. Your freedom, you've got freedom, and you've just like, woohoo, you know what I mean? You can be a person, or, and I mean, I didn't take the right directions, but I partied. And then eventually my son is what helped me settle down in my life. When I found out I was pregnant with him, a whole life changed. And I just needed something to live for, I think. I needed something to change for. There's so many dynamics in this whole situation, but my main point, or my main focus on a lot of these things, is that there's a lot of people out there in my situation. Mental health is very limited to truly how they truly help people. The resources are there, but they're not there to benefit everyone. They're there to only help a certain percentage. It's slowly getting better, but there needs to be a revamp. And it's not, the pushing towards the private facilities, and everybody's got to have medical insurance now, and the stress and the extra expenses and costs for the medical insurances. We don't have any right now because we've been running out of finances left, right, and center. The other thing I wanted to talk about, people are going to go, oh, but you got 9 dogs, 8 or 9 dogs. Well, okay, what happened was, I'm going to tell you guys what's been going on. We have all these dogs in our home. We love the breeds of border collies. So we started off with 2, and then all of a sudden we were like, you know what, this is a great breed, great education. There's therapy, there's agility, there's a wide variety, farming, all this stuff, right? And we got into the breed and really liked the breed, and we found we were good at something. We wanted to be Canada's top breeders, actually. We were starting to head that way. We were becoming really successful. And our family started falling apart. And then we were lacking help, and then people are like, oh, I want to join. I want to get, I want to do what you guys are doing, and we should join together in partnership. And so then we start partnering with people, but they're not getting out of bed till noon. You bring them a weed whacker, and the weed whacker's still there, sitting in the exact same spot a month later. And, how do we help each other if you're not going to help yourself either, or just rely that I'm going to pick up the work and you're going to carry with me? We brought our horse out there, and I kept telling Hugo, not a good idea. Not a good idea. Not right now. I don't feel like this is the right time. And I said, we can't. It's going to go to shit. It did. Right away we get there. All of a sudden, somebody's like, oh, your hay. Well, we just got here. We have to see how she's even going to settle in. And if she's going to settle in, why am I going to buy hay right off the bat Like, I mean, yeah, we had to get the hay, and we were working on that too at the exact same time because we knew that was a priority. But we trying her out there and stuff like that, and trying to work on getting our hay and trying to work on what we're all gonna do. And too many chiefs, I tell you, too many boss. We had a plan to try to start looking for a property, build a kennel on there, like an indoor shelter kennel that opens up, has little flaps that opens up for each separate kennel with chain link fences in between so that they can be still divided but still have an area to go outside when they need to. And, that flap is there for their needs or if they want to stay in the kennel. And, to be able to walk in between, like down the hallway, and then you can take care of all the dogs, get agility trainings, have people that are going through drug or alcohol issues, people like myself, be able to have a place to come to for a different therapy, animal therapy, or work towards their animal, their horse or their dog, or just come out and just work, be on the farm if they want to shift hay or if they want to feed a horse, or you know what I mean, or do agility with a dog, go for a walk with a dog, or just sit with the dog or a horse, or just like to do farm work in general and come and work towards goals. Like if they wanted to work towards a horse, then they can work towards that horse or, that dog, or have that opportunity. That was our dream. We were starting to become successful with our breeding business. But then with my brain bleed, with the cancer before that, I was starting to tell Hugo, I'm getting too tired. I'm getting too exhausted. We're not getting enough support and help. Everybody wants us to partake with them, but we're not getting the equivalents back. I mean, sure, they're going to find homes for my dogs or this or that, but we're not getting the equivalent of the partnership that was promised in the beginning, which really set us back and made us fall down. And we believed in these people that, yes, we're going to do this. Yes, this is going to happen. Yes, it's going to be a goal. It's funny because I never hardly hear from them unless they need money. Oh, I need gas money. And, in my time, sometimes I'm like, hey, I need help or I need this. And then, of course, they'll get my back in some ways too. That's my thing. Everybody wants a trophy, but nobody wants to achieve successfully with each other. Successful businesses is because people work together. So mine and Hugo's dreams fell down. We started ending up with, this dog or that dog because we're supposed to put this dog on the farm and we're supposed to have this one for breeding there and this one for that. And, and so we could start separating our male and our females and make sure that we're not using the same females or, from litters or, with the same males or all that stuff. And, we tried to hang on to it. Hugo really wanted to make it a go, but then I just didn't have the energy after my brain bleed. I just wanted to hang on, Hugo. We need to restart. We need to stop right now, please. But I kept going because we needed the finances. We needed the finances to keep going. And also the finances to support our dogs, financially, their food, all that stuff. So Lulu is still up for adoption, guys. We're looking to start to downsize our dog somehow. And, I don't know how we're going to do it, but obviously we're going to have to. We had the horse before everything started falling down in our life. We were thinking, okay, we're the brain bleed, we're getting over it. And I thought, like Hugo could use that extra connection and therapy, considering that he was left in an airport for 5 hours saying that I was going in for brain surgery and that they didn't know what my outcome would be. I didn't go for the brain surgery. They kept deciding and going back and forth. Should we, and finally it came down to the decision. We'll start seeing whether my brain could absorb the blood or not. And so it did. It slowly started absorbing the blood. I was in the hospital for a few days. So you got to imagine, I went through 7 surgeries because as my thyroid cancer started progressing, carpal tunnel set in really heavy. And my hands were stiffening and I couldn't type and I was dropping everything. I dropped my laptop. It hit the ground. So I don't even have a laptop. I just got a new one, but a while ago. And we were kind of financially okay. We had this plan. And he got a bit of money from the bank, about his money for like his mental health. And we were starting to have this plan. And then his granddaughter passed away. During COVID, he lost a grandson. She was pregnant, about 5 months pregnant for, I think, around. And he was supposed to be a boy, born around the time, the Father's Day, around the time that Caleb passed away. And he died. And then the COVID, the fever, stopped the baby's heart. Then she was pregnant again, and she was carrying low placenta, which is a risk of early delivery. And she delivered earlier, prematurely. And it was a baby girl, and she passed away 2 days later. Romy. And that was a big hit for both Hugo and I to take on, because we understand that pain, and to understand that his daughter was going through this and the family's going through this, and then it just didn't stop. And then it just felt like there were so many emotions going on before all that, in between everything. His daughter was put in juvie, and we're financially strapped, and his ex is claiming child support still, and has been since she has been in juvie. And then we try to bring it forward to MEP, and they're like, oh, you guys don't have enough evidence, and their court documents. Like, what the hell is wrong with our system? She's claiming for a child that doesn't even live with her, and the government is taking care of now. But he has no income. And it fell down very quickly. He was oil and sands worker, providing for our family. And his temper was increasing. His drinking was increasing. He finally quit drinking 3 years ago. January 1st. And that alone is hell on a family. So his temper increased again, because the drinking calms your nerves, right? Soothed him, but it was expensive, and it was, his body is starting to get really horrible body odor and gaining massive amounts of weight, and it didn't stop. So Hugo, finally, I was like, it's got to. So he finally quit drinking. He quit a lot of things, as he's with me. And yes, I can't say that every time his temperament has had outbursts, it's been fair for me, because it's not. There's been a lot of unfairness on my behalf. I get it. And he sees it, and he's trying to work on his temper. And then I have my depression. He has his anger from seeing me cry all the time, and there's nothing he can do to prevent what's happened. Nothing he can do to fix that. And every day I'm at home, every single day I cry. Every single day I try. Why can't I pull myself together? Why can't I stop crying? Why can't I be what people want me to be? Why can't I be what people want me to be? That's because I'm not. I am who I am. I'm outspoken. I'm an advocate. If you actually Google search my daughters and Alohan, you'll see that I've had some fights for her oxygen rights, had fights for her education. I've had to fight hospital ethic, and I shouldn't have had to fight for all that stuff. There was a child beside Enna, and she's ingenuous. And I said, why aren't you going and harping on that family and telling them to let go of their daughter and telling them to take her off life support? Because she's far off worse than my daughter is. She's not even fully comprehensive in her mind. But my daughter's fully comprehensive. And you're telling me to let my daughter, who's fully comprehensive in mind and probably has the most brilliant mind, because that's what she's able to use, and eventually communicate and eventually react, and she does react with us. The other one, yes, she knows people are there and things like that, but why am I only being hit on? You hit on that ingenuous family, you're going to have the whole media up your ass. I tell you, racism will be right up their alley. That's why. I'm white. Easy to see that I had a suicide attempt. Easy to knock down. I had an RT who I asked once, because there's a cough assist machine that assists in helping to cough my daughter. Weak lung, she doesn't have the muscle capacity, right? And I told her, I said, you do not touch my daughter. You have no idea how to use that machine. You've never used it on my daughter. You don't even know her. You don't know. I know just by you looking at everything that you can't even tell what you're doing. So don't touch her. I had a phone call, picked up the phone. Hugo was there. He's like the second day of of him coming and arriving. So he doesn't even know all the things that Anna needs for her care. She went and used the machine when I was in the hallway on the phone and started coughing my daughter. And then when I come in, she's just standing there. Well, when you cough them, you're supposed to suction the secretions that come out because you're coughing the secretions and things up. She didn't suction my daughter. And so I was listening to my daughter. I looked at my daughter. My daughter was... That's exactly what it sounded like too. And bubbles coming out of her mouth. And she wasn't suctioning her. And I was trying to suction my daughter and she was trying to block me. Oh, I tell you, hell was raised. But what happened was the RT that everybody's like, oh, he's so hot and he's so this and he's so that. And oh, he's been with me and he's been with... Yeah. The fancy one that goes with all the girls that all the girls talk about, the RTs all... Yeah. Okay, let's talk about this for a second. I had told this RT, I said, I told you not to touch my daughter. How would you like it if I took a straw, chomped on it, bit it down, shoved it down your throat, and asked you to breathe? Because it's what you did to my daughter. She turned around, told everybody I made a threat to her, that she was scared for her life, and she had this beautiful RT wrapped around her finger who went down my throat yelling at me about shit, and that he has to walk her to the parking lot every day because she's scared of her life, and he has to make sure she walks safely to her car. Her name is Jessica, by the way. Yeah. And then she turned around and said, oh, are you blaming me for this? I asked you in the first place not to touch my daughter. Do you think anybody stood up for that accountability? No, they turned it around and blamed me and said that I was threatening her life. And since that day, I can tell you my respect was zero. And if they think that I was strong, direct, intimidating, you know, when you go into a hospital, biggest thing I'm going to give you advice for, watch what fluids your family's getting. Watch which medications your family's getting. Watch how much IVs they're getting. Watch every detail that happens, because I'm telling you, everybody thinks, oh, they're doing a great job. But in reality, if you knew what was going into your body or the mishaps, I had an HIV needle in PICU. Story. My daughter was sitting in one cubicle, on the floor, one area, and then there was a bed right beside her. And all of a sudden I noticed the nurse getting up and all kind of weird and acting kind of strange and trying to be, discreet and getting nervous. And then more nurses are coming and I'm like, okay, what's going on? So I'm watching, and then all of a sudden I hear one nurse say, are you sure that that baby is HIV positive? She said, yes, it is. I'm positive. And his mom, he doesn't have his mom because his mom's in the hospital and gave him up. But yes, he is HIV positive. And they're like, and you sure you can't find the needle? Oh, my ears are open now. No, they couldn't find the needle. They went on this big search for it. So I said to Hugo, in 92 days from today, mark it on the calendar, they're going to be coming to us for a test for HIV testing. Hugo said no. So I made sure in my purse, I put in my purse this piece of paper that my doctor gave me from my pregnancy tests, all my blood work and everything like that, all the blood work for STDs, all that stuff, and everything's clear. Everything was negative on this sheet of paper. So what happens is 92 days later, they come up to the ward because we're now upstairs. They send a different doctor. That's the associate of the other doctor. We need to do blood work on Anna because one of the RTs, got splashed in the eye from her circuit. Oh, really? Oh, you mean because of the HIV needle you guys lost? How did you know about that? Wow. And then when I gave the sheet of paper to the original doctor, he grabbed the paper with both sides of his hands and he was shaking. And he was like, where did you get this? I was like, well, it's obviously I got it from my doctor, my family doctor, when I was pregnant. And I said, if my daughter comes out with HIV, I'm coming after your ass like you've never seen before. instead of them being honest and upfront. It's how a hospital runs on a regular basis. I had 3 psychiatrists crying, 2 of them crying, one of them not even be able to look at me, and then tell me that they were sorry for what they did to me and that they should have never done that to me, because I was escorted, forced downstairs by 2 security and a social worker when I was scrapbooking beside my daughter, saying that I was trying to commit suicide beside my daughter. This is how it went. When I got locked up is when Hugo finally, because he had to deal with a lot of things. He was in 2-month program for therapy after, with, trying to figure out everything of his life. Like, I mean, he had to come back, thinking he was going to come back to Alberta, bring a teddy bear for his daughter and pick her up and she'd be smiling. And he picked her up and she was smiling, but she had all the tubes on her. And she had spinal muscular atrophy type 1. So he picked her up and she looked at him like she's known him forever, like she already met him. And they just sat there like they already knew each other, connected. But he had told them, nobody's going to ever lock my wife up again. Recently, it's hard to explain. I know there was so much going on. Hugo put me on the street. He apparently snapped and didn't know what to do with our situation. And he thought that for sure we would have more supports or more helps and calling children's services and everybody, because we've used all our resources. We've used every resource we had, his pension, everything that we could clear out since my brain bleed, or even around my cancer, because 3 layoffs and 1 being 6 months of the economy downfall during that time period was really a big hit for our family right there too. And we just keep going down. And when we first started with FSCD, or, because there's government fundings, when you get your, when your family member's sick, it's like running a business. You have to run a business because you have to find a worker and you have to find staff. And you have this accountant set up for you that they set up for you. And the accountant didn't make us aware that you're supposed to pay employers' deductions as well as employees' deductions. And then when my dad died, the staff member decided, I'll help you with your accounting and stuff like that. And because my mind was so scrambly, and she ended up paying herself a very good paycheck. And to a point I couldn't pay deductions. Then would go to the Stollery Hospital and just degrade my family, saying that we overworked her and did all this stuff. And really, honestly, she really didn't have to do a whole lot of work. We did a lot of her Anna's work, but yes, she was efficient and she was good, but manipulative for attention is what I think it is, in my personal opinion. Personally feel that she needs to feel appreciated by everyone. Her parents were also drinkers, heavy drinkers, and, I think of the story Matilda all the time when I look at her. Do I hate her? No. Feel sorry for her? Yes. I'm not the only family member going through this. I'm not the only one in the world. I mean, people are like, I don't get that. I don't get this. I get PTSD when I walk into the hospital. Oof, want to talk about my PTSD? What the hell? Get PTSD when you walk into the hospital. I got attacked by 6 security guards when I went in for help voluntarily. Got my phone taken away. Never got the supports that I needed. If anything, my psychiatrist looked me in the face and said, I'm really sorry about all that, but can we move forward past that and just take what good you did get out of your therapy? And I got some triggers released when that traumatic event happened, which was a good thing. A lot of things started flying and shifting. But as these things started flying and shifting, the hospital didn't want to have me as a liability anymore, so they let me go on an early release, saying that I was on a voluntary release, which counteracted my appeal, my voice on the situation. So my appeal was terminated. and nobody heard my case. Today was the first time since I put out the last video that finally the 2 home care workers came back with the heparin. They're not horrible people by all means. I mean, the one, she's gone above and beyond more than any person I've known for our family. And just as discouraged by what she was witnessed our family go through all these years. But again, can't speak up. It's our job. It's my license. I was going to take my video down, the last one. And Hugo kept, Lisa, no, this is why we do what we do. This is why we're in this fight. This is why we don't back down. This is why we stay strong. A lot of me is going through a lot of emotions right now. You have no idea what kind of hit it's like to be someone who feels like they're always alone, to be stuck in a shelter without their kids when you've been there 15 years day in and day out and you haven't left their side. I went on one holiday to Jasper overnight, and I went to one overnight Christmas party with Hugo in Fort Mac. Other than that, we've been home every day, other than when I've been in hospital for my medical issues and when I was in the shelter. It's the only time I've been separated from my kids, ever. Other than that, for 15 years, I haven't worked anywhere. I've been staying by my daughter's bedside, helping my son, helping my youngest, helping Hugo, trying to meet everyone's needs, demands, and I got exhausted. I'm burnt out. I'm worn out. I'm to a point where I can't even fill out a piece of paper functionally anymore because my brain just looks at the paper and it's too much for me. I have application, apply for this, apply for that, go there, get this, get that, get your bank statement, get this, and I'm exhausted, I'm run down, and I'm trying. Then I run out of gas. Then I gotta wait for money for next time. It's been trying to get from point A to point B, so we got a little bit of money this time around just before Christmas and around November. And it was that money that was supposed to save us. Not save us, but try to give us a little bit of, okay, we'll give some to the mortgage for the bank and we'll do this and do that. But then I ended up on the street and everything just went so chaotic, and I paid all the bills, and, and I wanted the kids to have a good Christmas this year. And because last year it was hard and we haven't been eating very well. And so I got a turkey, roasted turkey and stuff to make a good dinner this year. I wanted us to have a good meal this year. I'm Ukrainian. So, Ukrainian Christmas, and all my traditions are gone because me and Hugo can't function enough to appreciate anything anymore. So I did something different this year, but kind of on the terms of traditional. I look forward to it every holiday season, the big dinner, the stuffing. I look forward to it all, the pierogies, all that stuff. The beautiful dinners that we make, and it didn't happen. So this year I wanted it to happen. And I got the girls gifts because I wanted to take the minds off of everybody this time around. And I'm not done yet. I still want to make our glow to shine, a success. Like I said, I still want to do something. And like I said, the heart's in the window right there, February 7th. My goal is to donate the hearts in the window to the Stollery Hospital after 15 years, to the first doctor who ever met me in emergency 15 years ago. I mean, not to the date, but it's Anna's birthday. Her treatment is supposed to be that day, so I'm asking and I'm crossing fingers and praying, because the last couple times it's been hard to put her on her side. And it's not always easy for her, for our family. Put her on her side and wait for the injection, and her face goes purple, and circulation and all that stuff. It's hard the way they have to, and we keep trying to work on it. And she goes there every 4 months. This year falls on her birthday, and I said, you know what, this is the time we hand this over. been waiting. We started making it during COVID. I can turn the light on. We started making that during COVID, me and Anna, just in the beginning of COVID there. And this one nurse that worked with us, she's like, it's so beautiful, and she loved it, and I wanted to give it to her, but then I thought, you know what, with me giving it to the stollery, it's in an honor of her and all the nurses that I know, worked with, worked around, trained. And yeah, I take my job personally and serious because they're people. We don't put a uniform on just because we want to look good. There's people's lives underneath those uniforms. Every time you put a uniform on, those person's skin cells, that person's life is on your uniform that you're wearing every day. They vomit on you, they bleed out, they piss on you. I mean, because some people with Alzheimer's, they just don't have the comprehension of what's going on. Piss on the floor so your running shoes stick to them. And we go home at the end of the day when, you know, someone passes away and says, you know what, I had a lady and this man, you know, a couple people tell me, I've never seen a worker care as much as you have, and I'm going to be leaving soon. But you're the best worker, and or things like that. And you go home and you cry for them and you move on. You sit with them until they have their last moment. Long-term care working, that's what it does. There's palliative care. You're making the best of the last years for those people. And what you leave behind, you know, what I always tell people, what care you're going to be putting in every time you put your runners on, every time you put your uniform on, every time you go and you give care to someone, that is a life. Could be anyone's life coming through that door at any minute that you care for. And that could be your life-changing moment. I don't know. You got to remember when you put that uniform on, you're not only book smart. Because remember, they are individuals. Everybody is an individual, and we all have individual needs to an extent. We're not all the same. So take time to listen, analyze, pay attention. Not be the officer to call someone who is going through serious depressions, serious traumas, pathetic, and on and on and on, and make them feel like they're more useless in this world than they already are. Or a nurse who says that you're just a hypochondriac. Coming from another nurse, hey? Medical knowledge, but I'm a hypochondriac. So I hope I can start explaining a little more of our family, and I am going to start getting back to more of our vlogs on a positive out note. It's a very controversial, hard topic for people to absorb. I get it. Deep and hard. But the reason why these topics become that point is because nobody takes the time for them. People just are too busy until you're the one that's sitting in the hospital waiting room for hours on end being ignored or neglected. Hugo asked our doctor during SARS, I believe it was. We were in the ward upstairs. Norwalk was hitting the ward. I got hit with Norwalk. My dad got hit with it before he died. A couple nights before he died, he started getting hit with it. Right after me. And then Hugo had asked the doctor if they can't handle this situation very well, what's going to happen if there was ever a big pandemic? And the doctor patted Hugo on the shoulder and he goes, the government's got a plan for that. Tapped him on the shoulder and smiled. The government has a plan for that. How's that plan going so far? I want to say thank you to all the subscribers, all our viewers, all those who are helping us build our channel, because in all honesty, I really don't know what else to do at this point with my mental state of mind, everything that I deal with or go through in our family. And I'm going to take you on my journey with me. It's not always pretty, as you can see. My emotions are not always going to be stable. I'm not always going to be stable. But I'm still here fighting every day for myself, for my family, for, you know, what we all deserve in life, you know, to be able to be happy in life, to enjoy the fulfillments of life, each other, learn from each other's spirits. Oh gosh, I have nurses from all over the world, and I love hearing about all their different experiences and different religions and different beliefs and, you know, their stories and, you know, their different dressings and why. And so it's incredible if you actually look and listen to someone's history. It's phenomenal where people come from and what they've grown to or be. I'm still trying to find myself, guys. I'm working on it day by day. I was someone once. And I didn't ask for PTSD. I didn't ask for depression. I didn't ask for anxiety. And everybody who puts me down about it has no clue how hard it is for me to process it all and try to function and be what everybody wants me to be, or the person that they remembered. I'm trying to find out how to be happy again. I don't even know how. I don't know what that really feels like anymore. And it's like, what, gotta be 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning? I can't sleep because I can't shut my brain down. I just toss and I turn, and plus my ribs are hurting. And if I lay on my one side, I've been on my other side for so long that my hip is hurting. I can't keep laying on that side all the time. And I can't lay on my stomach, and I can't lay on my back. Three children, and we've never been able to have them a part of our family because father's rights are minimal. And yes, there should be more. I'm going to say it. I know I went through shit and hell with my ex, but there should be more equivalents. And I will say that, yes, because I'm a woman, I was able to use that to my advantage, which sucks in some cases, like Hugo, where people really do care, really do want their children to be a part of their life. He had no clue that his daughter left home at 15 and was suicidal. Nobody told him until last year, until I gave him and my daughter a ticket so that my daughter could meet her siblings for the first time. One of them, at least. One of my daughters. And shortly after this baby passed away, his other daughter made a suicide attempt. And we just found out about that. And she's in juvie. And then his son is literally a lost sheep because he's been labeled and depleted and degraded and never respected, because that's what happens when somebody has addictions or things like that. They will they'll make everything else look like it's a different situation to cover up their own faults. And it's really scary and it's sad, and it's really hard to hear some of the kids when they're like, you know, it's not me, it's her. This is what, you know, she's going around town saying this. And then you look at them and you can see they're really good kids. And they're extremely hurt. Because we have a system that makes it so difficult for families to be able to speak up. To be able to fight for what's right on equivalence for the children's sake. We were blocked. We couldn't afford to really fight in court anyways. I was being taken to court for traveling costs, which cost us over $21,000. Thankfully, a lawyer was nice enough and kind enough to say you're going through so much that she waived $5,000 of it. Of my bill. I took 6 months of my paralegal course. I owe $21,000. I still owe $7,000 now, over $7,000 for it, because I tried to pay back what I could over the years, and I only made 6 months of a 15-month course and no diploma, but I owe a $21,000 debt for trying to go back to school while my daughter was in the hospital on life support, off and on at home. Most of her care we do at home. We do all. Now, as treatment has progressed with SMA or with Anna, we are finding more, knocking on wood as I say it, stabilities, seeing more strengths coming. And again, I'd love to do water therapy, these things, all these things. I want to get her to water therapy. I want to get her to do all these things. And I can't, like it's just been really hard mentally, physically for myself. There are programs. If people were to really look at the medical lifestyles and see the divisions of it, okay, we're going to you donate to the Children's Stollery Fund, okay, but most of it goes to heart and cancer. So heart and cancer will have all this equipment and machines and shampoo and, like you need to wash your baby's hair, you got shampoo, you got everything. You go into 4E4 ward and genetic wards, got nothing. You're scrum, you have to borrow shampoo from the other ward. And they tell me the reason is because of lack of funding, because genetics is a low number. But when you add all the genetics together, all of them, it's a pretty big number. We don't bring enough awareness to it. And I mean, can you imagine what we could do with the more research in the genetic world for heart disease and for cancer? And there's a lot out there that is available that the governments or people just don't want to release because it's better to have a money market. We could be saving lives, but what for? I mean, do research. Go back and see how much medication really costs to make. The research, yes, is a lot of money. But honestly, $2,000 per injection. Just that one. Every time I get a treatment, do you know how many people have cancer? Take that number and figure it out. We've turned it into the biggest money marketing business the world has ever seen. And we're not saving lives in the right sense. We're not being there for mankind in the right sense. Greed. Pay attention more next time your family member goes into a hospital, or the next time you got to wait in a waiting room for 2 hours or to 5 hours or 6 hours, or for an ambulance that's taking 5 hours to come, or when they send you a Uber to ambulance you to a hospital, or the government's got a plan. Remember that, guys. Nice plan. Because the world is a frickin' mess right now. And nobody cares to do anything about it except go, our waiting rooms are full. You know what? I'm even willing to put my scrubs on again. Ukrainian women that never picked up a gun in their entire life are soldiers now. Men, women that were in lawyers, doctors, pharmacists, teachers, they're now fighting a war. They put their uniforms on. Why can't we all start putting scrubs on and start putting our runners on and start saying, okay, what is it that I can do? Start advocating, start preaching, start whatever. Who cares about your fucking license? You're not the only doctor. Speak up. Why be afraid? I walked out the door when I was pregnant. I lost my job. I worked my ass off at 2 different places, I tell you. You're going to lose your job. Maybe you're actually going to do something good in your life for once. Anyways, taking up a lot of time. I'm pretty sure not very many people will be watching this right to the end, but if you do, thank you. Thank you for the supporters. Keep helping us with our YouTube channel, sharing it, whatever. Eventually, we will start handing out once we reach 500 viewers, it will be our first giveaway. I'm not quite sure exactly which one will be the first giveaway. I'm starting to think it might be that one. And it might be Anna's Angel. I don't know yet. We will see which one. But once we hit 500 subscribers, guys, will be our first giveaway. In the meantime, I am going to attempt, I was going to attempt today. I might not because I've been up all night. I can't sleep, so I don't know what my day I'm going to be sleeping on and off tomorrow probably. But one of these guys is going to go on a trail walk with me somewhere, and I'm going to start leaving them around the city so that you know that there's a glow and shine out there. You're not alone when you pick it up. You know that everybody glows and shines. Right? Oh, might not be this because somebody might just take the mushroom top and just run. I don't know. People are weird these days. I'm not any better. So, one step at a time, guys. I've been able to focus on my video, trying to learn to accept myself. So there are times where I struggle to keep the video camera on myself. When I do go on video or take pictures, that's because I have a big confident day that day and I'm thinking I can do this. I can look good, and every day I'm trying to work on my self-esteem, my self-confidence. I'm trying to say I can do this today. I'm okay. I look okay. I am a human being. Take a deep breath. And again, one step at a time. Just take it one step at a time. So like, subscribe. And I know a lot of people will not know how to take us. We are a very heavy topic, but I appreciate for those who take the time with us. Thank you.